All right, everyone, welcome. We got Shane Cashman here from Timcast. He's a writer. He just came out with this amazing piece, Cashman: The Case for President Ye. What was that like, Shane?
A whirlwind. I didn't sleep for about a week. So when Ye and Milo and Nick were on IRL, we all kind of found out that day, and I had honestly been working on this story a week before that, and I had no idea he'd be coming through. So I'm already thinking about this rather deeply, and then he comes by, and I'm like, obviously I'm a huge fan of his, and then whatever happened on IRL happened. He walks out, and like the minute he walks out, I walk right up to him, which is like in the kitchen below IRL, and I tell him like that I just like believe in what he's doing, and I think I can see the vision. And it was like a really good talk. I felt like I was giving him like a pep talk almost. I was trying to get him to go back upstairs. I was like, I believe in you, but I was like, you should go upstairs and tell everyone else why they should believe in you too. Like it'd be great to have the conversation. Uh, his mind was already made, so that wasn't happening. But then we talked about music briefly. I mentioned an article, like there's an opera he wrote that I really like. So we talked about that, and then he, I guess, enjoyed the conversation because he took my name and number, and then told me to fly to LA. And so I spent the next 3 or 4 days figuring out that. So, and it worked. So yeah, 4 days later, I think I found out at 4 in the morning that he had approved it, and so we booked a flight. I'm grateful that Tim took the risk because we didn't know who knew what could happen.
Mhm.
And I mean, so much so that the whole InfoWars thing was going down when I'm in the airport. I'm at the terminal, and I'm like, oh, this is not happening. Like, this is it. And I'm getting hit up from all these people. Like, they're done with Ye. This is it. Telling me I should jump ship. And I was honestly like, okay, maybe, because it was feeling really crazy. I was hearing people talk about it. It was literally everywhere. And no one knew I was going out there except for Tim, my wife, Nancy, and Ye and his small team. So I had some second thoughts. I was like, this is probably not going to happen. I also wasn't hearing from anybody on his team to like confirm. I'm like, I'm about to board the plane. Like, what's good? So nothing. And then I called Nancy real quick. I was like, what should I do? And she was like, you got to get on the plane. And so I got on the plane. And when I landed, I found out that he was in Miami. I was like, it's not happening now. There's no way. And but yeah, and then the next day I heard back from Nick, and he said to come through at a certain time, gave me the place, and then this whole thing took place. Which I honestly am still in shock that I got it, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it shows that he even though he walked out, he wanted an excuse to continue dialogue, it seemed.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of different theories about what happened with IRL. I personally don't think it was totally staged. I could see why. I still don't know, honestly. I asked about it, and I still don't have a clear answer. Um, I think it's probably a number of things. I thought Tim was doing a good job, honestly. I was hoping the conversation could pivot because I've just seen so many interviews with him. The second he said, I'm about to walk off, I'm like, oh, he's going to walk off.
Yeah.
This is it.
Right.
I was like, and I'm hitting up Luke. I'm like, dude, like maybe ask him this or something. And it just happened so fast. But I do think, like, yeah, you're right. He does want to talk to people. He's just, I think there's
And
so
it's
many
about
things
the
going on in his
angle in.
brain.
It's like the fact that you brought up music, and it's like all the political chaos aside, like just bring it back to music. That's probably the
Yep.
type of thing that just relaxes him and makes him feel like, this is an artistic conversation. And so, yeah, what is this room? It's like a funny aesthetic.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's Photoshop because my
Okay.
my editors were so mad at me because I spent 2 days with him and I didn't ask for photos. I don't really like taking photos. I don't really like asking
Oh,
people for
you have no
photos.
physical media. I see. Yeah, yeah. Or like
So they were
footage.
like, "What? We sent you out there and you wrote like I wrote like 30,000 words and no pictures." So note to self: take pictures next time. But yeah, this
Did you
this is
record
his
the
room though.
audio?
This I have all the audio. Yeah, it's all
Okay.
I have all
Yeah,
the
that's
audio,
cool.
so I do have that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Thankfully, I couldn't. I would not be able to remember everything that he said, because the
Right.
first day was like 4 hours, and the second day, which is going to be the part 2 of the story that comes out on Monday, that's like a 12-hour day with him. I mean, it's a long, wild day. So yeah, this picture, the background is his like headquarters, and that's where I was waiting while Gavin McGinnis was interviewing him at that time. So I'm listening to them like laugh and stuff, and right to the right of that screen, I didn't have photos of this either, but all his clothing is laid out on the floor where they're still working on stuff. It's a really interesting place. Huge, very minimal, cool spot.
Yeah, the phrase "radical love" I think is pretty fascinating. And are you familiar with Daryl Davis's work?
Oh yeah, I was thinking about that a lot this weekend for sure.
Yeah, I think it's very relevant. I would love to, connect them. That would be really cool. Because I think that it's relevant. First of all, obviously, because of the incredibly controversial things that Ye is saying, but it sort of grounds the conversation, because with all of this talk, like, oh, you were getting pressure, for instance, like, don't do it, man. He's like, he's going too far. But like, if you bring in like the Daryl Davis philosophy and a lot of like how we approach free speech at Minds, which is, we're partnered with Daryl. So, we work together on it. And it's like that, like, you can talk to anybody and you should never feel like, even if they're a convicted murderer in prison, like, it doesn't matter. And I think that is part of what Ye wants. I think he's taking that approach with how he's talking about things, but then he'll randomly sort of say things that I think trigger everyone, for good reason. Maybe he's even trying to do that. So I'm curious, like, how you after spending so much time, like, where you, like, if you were thinking about Daryl, I'm really curious, like, how that came into play for you.
I was, because, well, after the dust settled with the whole InfoWars thing, and I was just like, whoa. I was like, I started thinking of this phrase, radical love, because that's initially, like, everyone's hitting me up. I was getting really nervous. I'm like, wow, maybe I am, like, someone told me I was the last Ye fan on earth. And I was like, okay, maybe I am. But I saw something in him, or in his words, that he was doing, as controversial as they sounded. I saw him reaching for radical love and forgiveness, which is like, it was really profound. It sounds so simple, but when he like couches it in what he said, it's controversial. So him extending forgiveness to people that we all think are evil, for hate, or filled with hate. I thought of Daryl and thought about what he did, and going out and talking to people that, clearly would hate him, or people who he should hate. And I'm always about, I am a free speech guy, man. That's why I love you guys so much. Like, talk to everybody, listen to everybody. I despise censorship. And so, like, yeah, those were all swirling in my brain then as I got on the plane. All of the anxiety of people telling me, like, he's an evil man. Like, I felt like he's not. I felt like he's extending love through his radical, way of doing it. So yeah, I felt very at ease by the time I landed. In terms of that, I didn't feel easy about actually getting to him, because that was still up in the air. But in terms of how I saw him talking, I saw him going about this. This is what I told him. I told him this is like radical destruction to bring about radical love. Like, his comments on InfoWars were destructive. It's like he threw a grenade and then just walked away. So then, after spending time with him, I did probably like 18 hours fully that weekend with him. I would say 3 of those hours were just me and him. I walked away being like, he is a ultra kind person who's constantly thinking about everything at once. He even says it on IRL, like, I've got 7 thoughts in my brain, and it sounds kind of funny, like a flex. But when you're in conversation with him and there's assistance happening, his phone's blowing up, he's watching a movie, he's making music, you can see that, like, literally there must be all these thoughts happening. But I walked away with the impression that, like, he is filled with love, and he wants to express that in his way. Because I don't know if it made it in the first part, but I tell him, like, what you're doing is Christ-like. You're extending love to people who are, quote unquote, evil, all types of people. But, like, you are also being kind of like Andy Kaufman. you know, where it's you go up there and you were like it's a performance. And he loved that. I don't know if I got it in this part, but he said we Alex Jones to Alex Jones, we put Andy Kaufman in an old folks home.
Oh.
Wow.
Like I was like, that was so funny. But yeah, no, I walked away. Well, I should say first, as much as I did feel ease when I landed, I was starting to also accept the fact that I might meet someone I looked up to for 2 decades and be really let down. You know, like, oh, he's going to be this and that. I've got this idea in my brain. So I'm like setting myself up. But after those 2 days, I walked away being like, well, that's exactly who I thought he was, and probably more. Like how, you know, how he's constantly thinking about pushing society forward while also doing it in his own unique way. So yeah, I walked away feeling like ultra positive. The positivity is actually contagious, and I've been trying to even use that in my own life, especially after the last few years where I've succumbed to negativity quite often.
Yeah.
So what percentage of, so you got kind of Alex Jones, Andy Kaufman, you know, JC, but then what percentage of it do you think, you know, for instance, like, you know, denying the number of people, you know, who died in the Holocaust, do you think that there's a percentage of kind of the information that he's saying, which is sort of like him buying in to any conspiracy theories, or maybe he just genuinely thinks that like we need to remove the taboo from like anything, and just like we do need to be willing to, you know, have these extremely difficult conversations? Like, yeah, what's your take on that?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I don't know about percentage wise, but I think he's erasing the taboo and starting a really hard conversation. I mean, he kept saying stuff like, obviously there's been atrocities. And I'm like, obviously. I'm like sharing my own accounts of, you know, family and stuff, because I had family who had gotten out and some didn't from the Holocaust. I had family who escaped Russia and the pogroms, right? Like wild stuff that I know personal stories of. So I think he's definitely interested in like quote unquote conspiracy theories, from whether we're talking about Tesla stuff or, you know, questioning, you know, things like genocides. But what I see them doing, the conversation that we were having is kind of about the taboo also. And like, there's a, how do they put it? The inconsistency of standards, where it's like, how come certain people on certain sides of the political spectrum can openly praise someone like Mao and Stalin? And like, I've been on a kind of kick the last year or two about saying like we should be recognizing just how horrible Mao is in the face of a lot of people, friends of mine, who think he's amazing. And I'm like, Mao is ultra violent and wicked. So I think they're like erasing the taboo, and he just keeps pushing it forward. And I think like, yeah, they question numbers of the Holocaust. And, you know, I personally, like, it makes me uncomfortable to even think about it, having had family dealing with it. But this is the thing I told them, and this is like what's so uncomfortable, is like the book I just finished writing for Tim, it ends with me questioning like the veracity of so many parts of the Civil War. And this horrible thing in my mind where I was like, I don't want to question other things. Not that atrocities don't happen, because I'm not like that. Like, obviously they happen. I have family in it. But there's certain nuances where I'm like, I extended nuances to people that were, in my mind, evil growing up, you know, from the Confederacy, like Jefferson Davis or someone. So my mind was in a place where I'm like, all right, if you, I don't, you know, I'm not going to buy into denying things, but I can buy into questioning things. And that goes along with my free speech thing. So if you want to question it, go for it. It makes me uncomfortable. That said, if you read, the book's not out yet, but if you sign up at Timcast, like the whole second volume is about the Civil War. And, you know, I grew up at West Point, where, you know, we as in West Point created all these generals from both sides of the war. And you kind of like lionize people like Sherman, demonize people like Jefferson Davis. And through like the book that I wrote, I'm finding things I'm like about Davis and how he adopted this black boy and saved him from being beaten. I was like, okay, now I'm softening this image of someone who I thought was evil. And on the flip side, I'm looking at Sherman, who he burnt down the South with the March to the Sea, and, you know, learning things about how they just murdered all these free slaves because he was upset that they were following him and giving up their location. So it's like, you know, my idea of each of these bad and or good people had softened or hardened. So it allowed me to like not be so like ugh with any type of questioning.
Yeah.
I don't know if they fully believe, you know, I don't think they fully deny anything. I've heard Nick explicitly say he believes in the atrocities, clearly. With the number stuff, you know, it definitely makes me uncomfortable. But like I told them, you have the right to say anything you want, and I'm for you saying it, and I will offer my ideas and my angles into it. But you know, that was one
The
of the
problem
reasons
is
it's really important to go out
these numbers debates, like when you're talking
Yeah.
about, you know, even when people talk about the Iraq War, you know, there's for so long it was like 1 million dead, and then it's
Right.
like, oh no, it's only a few 100,000, and it's like, so that there's all like understanding. Yeah, COVID.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Perfect example.
Understanding like death metrics is so complicated and difficult, and like it's just going to be a forever debate in literally probably every major, you know, catastrophic event.
Yep. Oh, it's so true. And I have another podcast I do with my buddy Sean Strong. And for like the last 2 years, like that podcast started during COVID. He's from Atlanta, black kid from Atlanta, and I'm like this pacey Jewish kid from New York. And we just started talking about life, COVID, lockdowns. And maybe like it was actually the night that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. I'll never forget it. He had told me like on the show, like he questioned the numbers. And that was like the first time I'd ever heard anyone say that, honestly, you know, and I was like, whoa, it threw me off. But again, like even then I'm like, I'm interested in this conversation. And we went to like the Holocaust Memorial website, and I was like, the estimated number was so vast. I'm like, all right, like, okay, even they're saying it's this number. So like in my mind growing up, I had, you know, it's got to be this, and that. And I just think I'm okay with questioning. I don't think it means you're denying certain horrible things.
Yeah.
I think they're obviously aware of violence and atrocities, but they're also like shattering the taboo of questioning, which I can appreciate.
The only problem with it that I see, it's not the questioning. It's more so that it's unsolvable. So like, you know, where, like, what's the point? Like, okay, it just feels a little bit, you know, yeah, fine. I actually doesn't like if people question, I don't care what people question, but it just seems like sort of a waste of time. I think it's similar to the whole race and IQ topic in terms of like, if people want, like, I don't care, go ahead. But like, is it, what's the goal? Where, you know, what's, you know, why is it worth it to focus on this as opposed to something else? Because we all have like limited time. We don't, there's only so much we can focus on. So you do at a certain point have to prioritize.
Right. But what I would say is like, I'm glad,
totally
I'm glad Shane had the balls to do it. Like going, it's scary. Tim, I'm glad Timcast crew, you guys had Kanye on, even with all the stuff that was going on, because I think what was actually tested was whether or not we can have discussions about things with social media, on social media, and things that maybe people don't, you know, necessarily want to hear about, or, you know, do deem as a waste of their time. But there are some people that like having this discussion. I mean, I think about like the atheist and the religious discussion. Like we're never going to solve that, but a ton of people like having the discussion. As long as, you know, we don't try to actively shut it down. I think that's what you guys really did. That for me, like I saw people who were, you know, argue for free speech and who were like, ooh, this doesn't look good. And it was kind of a test. It was a test for a lot of people. It'd be like, hey, you know, conversation and discussion is important, and this is why. You know, you don't have to agree with what Ye is saying. You don't have to agree with what Fuentes is saying, but we should at least have the discussion.
That's all I want.
For sure. And, you know, for the record, you know, the fact that Ye is still banned from Twitter, I think is completely insane. And, you know, obviously, you know, he has an invitation to Minds, and we would love to have him. because these are exactly the types of conversations that we want to be able to facilitate. There is no, we can't, if you avoid the conversation, we all know what's going to happen by, pushing the problem under the rug. So, that's obviously an open invitation, but I think that like, did you talk at all about the Twitter ban?
Yeah. When does this come out? Is it live right now or is it?
No, probably later today. I think I froze up, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, Bill's frozen. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be in the part 2, but I'll give you like a little bit of it now. Like we talked about it, and so he invites me to church. That's how this part ends, and I go to church with him in the morning, and we're sitting in church, and he's like next to me, like texting Elon like furiously, like begging for like a debate on free speech. And I'm just like, yes, that'd be amazing. I don't think, as far as I know, Elon did not respond yet, but like they had just met, like a night or 3 nights before. So I think, and also, and it's in this piece, while I'm interviewing him, he finds out that Elon said he wanted to punch him, in that Twitter Space interview thing. So he plays the audio of Elon saying, I wanted to punch Kanye, he said. So he's definitely inciting violence in me.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh yeah, good point. Good point.
I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave and come back. Just saying.
Okay, cool.
You guys keep going.
Cool.
No, yeah, that's a really, really good point. That's interesting. Yeah, because you can't do that. But
right.
And like our show, so we've talked about Elon a bunch, and like since its takeover, and like one of the things that's tough, it's like the fact that he doesn't have a policy, and the policy essentially is fuck around and find out. I mean, that's that's kind of what he said on the record as far as a policy. But yeah, I mean, this is why it's important to have a policy, and I agree with Bill 100%. Like Kanye should not have been taken off for that post. We actually
we did a whole conversation about it, and like that symbol is actually the symbol of like this weird kind of UFO cult.
Yeah, the Raelians, right?
The Raelians, yeah. So it's not even it's not even actually a symbol that's calling for violence.
Yeah. Right. Well, so he didn't even know that. He didn't know it was the Raelians.
We were curious. Yeah.
He didn't know that. He was literally like, I just wanted to put a swastika in the Star of David for unity. Like he was like, unity. That's his whole thing. So we were telling him about that. He's like, I didn't even know about that. He's like, I literally just wanted.
He liked the art of it, of like unifying, like basically, he felt it was like almost like a symbol of love, like bringing.
He said free love speech. I think with the picture, I believe it said free love speech.
Right. And I mean, it's just so funny because I want to get into some of the new Twitter files in a minute, but like, I think it was stated that it was a permanent suspension. So now you're going to get in the situation where Ye and Elon they're friends, and Elon sort of backed himself into this corner, and I'm predicting it right now. Ye will come back to Twitter. It's not there's 100% no way Elon is gonna uphold a permanent ban on Ye. So, but it's just like a little bit sloppy. I feel like they jumped the gun, and they have to be really careful about that. So just before we hop over to the Twitter file stuff, so your first book is Tales from the Inverted World, and then you got part 2 coming out soon.
First book for Tim. My first book is actually called Joyless Kingdom, and then my second book is one for Tim, and that's Inverted World, and that's like, the first book is just a collection of different essays, investigations. It's about the Long Island serial killer, which I investigated. It's about simulation theory. It's about a guy who was abducted by aliens his whole life, so he says. All types of stuff like that. And then,
which is awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I love those stories. I'm really proud of that book. And you can get that book at invertedworldbook.com. And then the second volume, the book's not published yet, but we illustrate and narrate every chapter on timcast.com for members only. And that's about me going to the town of Washington, Georgia, to find, the lost Confederate gold. And it ends up turning in, I went down there for one article, and it turned into a whole book about different people, their paranormal experiences, UFOs. I saw UFOs. I, you know, had my life threatened a few times. It was a blast.
Holy shit. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We have to have you back on. Initially, I wanted to have you on to talk about all that stuff because I'm such a work for that stuff, but we got to have you back on and talk about that stuff. Let me give you guys one more perspective, okay, on the Ye thing before we move. So I was in Austin. We can't talk about why, but I was in Austin with your wife. She's fantastic and she loves having conversations. I loved it. And we went to the Joe Rogan show.
He's the best.
Yeah, so we went to the Joe Rogan show together at the Vulcan, and your stuff was blowing up, but her phone was hidden because Joe, you know, takes the phones. You can't have the phones in there. But so Joe, you know, he did his set. It was amazing. The whole show was amazing. He did a Q&A at the end, which I was like, that was like interesting. And the first question was whether or not he was good. Well, someone said, "Hey, you need to have Ye back on," and he was joking. He was like, "I don't have to do anything, bitch," you know, like this joke. And then, but they started talking about it, and they were like, you know, would you have him back on? And now his perception was, look, I don't want to have somebody on that is going through a mental episode right now, and that was his take. And I've kind of heard this from other people as well. You know, like what you spend time with them. You know, everyone else is like. In the looking through the window, like you actually spend time with them. Like, what was your take on that?
Yeah, I was worried. You know, I wasn't worried until the InfoWars thing, and then everyone hitting me up saying stuff. I was starting to be like, okay, maybe this is it. And I mean, immediately the second I saw him, he was just like smiling, kind, calm. He remembered our conversation. He was like, you know, he was very cordial. I think he is super lucid, super with it. I watched him work. I watched him be with friends. I watched him deal with family stuff. I watched a lot of stuff, and I'm observing, and I'm willing to be let down. Honestly, the whole time, I'm like, at any point this could break, and I'll see like behind the facade, and it's so terrible. But honestly, I walked away just being like, that dude is lucid and he knows what he's doing. You know, people were hitting me up saying like, Fuentes is using him or Milo's using him. And I know Milo a little bit now, and I didn't think Milo was. I didn't know Nick until I met him at IRL. So I was like, maybe. But I walked away being like, they're collaborating. They're a good team, whether you like what they're saying or not. Like they're gelling and they're focused. And obviously, Ye's got a lot of stuff going on that's upsetting. But he keeps saying he's happy. Like he's happy. He's happier to be outside of the Adidas deal than in it, right? So personally, as of now, I feel like he's good. I feel like he's very with it. And I think it's really dismissive of people to keep saying he's mentally unstable, honestly. So I hope people read it and feel that same way. But I'm open to changing my mind if things continue and we continue talking. And I'm you know, just hoping for the best for him.
I mean, this is a tale as old as time. Is, you know, people kind of, you know, who, if you talk about taboo things in society, you will be called crazy. That's just what happens. So, you know,
look at Alex.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. And I think that Alex at this point doesn't care. And I would hope that Ye also would realize, like, look, people are gonna say that, and that's just it honestly comes with the territory of dealing with the controversy. I'm not saying it's not hard to hear that a lot, but it's kind of like if you're going to dive into that realm, like, I mean, he knows this because he's like one of the most famous people on planet Earth. Like it just, you know, the backlash is going to come to everything you do. And like, do you feel like he has like a generally thick skin or not?
Yes, and probably no. And that's actually one of the first things I told him after I said, like, I believe in this and da 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 da. I was like, this makes sense to me, like all of this, because anytime you've been rejected in every industry, you know, when you were a producer, they said you couldn't be a rapper. When you were a rapper, they said you couldn't be like this mega pop star. And he kept shattering every expectation, design, architecture, you know, he's building all these things and the shoes. So it's like, I personally just won't discount it yet because every time you've been mocked, you make it better. I'm sure it gets under his skin. I definitely have saw him like get a little upset with like Ben Shapiro with the video that he made about like worrying for him, wanting to get help, because he takes it as like it's just condescending. It's like almost like, you know, yeah, it's just condescending. Like he just is like, that's not what's going on. But I think he feeds off of it. I think he likes getting. I think he likes. I don't know if he likes it, but I think he's turned it into fuel. Every time he falls out of the good graces of the public eye, he just like turns it into something successful. Every time. George Bush doesn't like black people. Taylor Swift, White Lives Matter. I mean, this is his cycle every time.
Kardashians.
The Kardashians, like everything. So he must have a thick skin, but also not enough to where it still doesn't get in him to like mutate him into like pushing forward. Does that make sense?
That's interesting. Yeah, it's well, like but nobody's invincible. You can you can tell yourself you are, but you know, to what you're saying, you almost need to let it penetrate you in order to use it as fuel, like you're saying. So that's there's kind of nuance to that. I guess I think it would be a Jedi move for him to bring someone in to his circle who is like a socialist. Like, just, you know, to shatter that. And I'm sure that, like, you know, like, I bet, like, Destiny or like something like,
he's not a socialist, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yes, I
progressive, somebody on the left.
I literally told him this on our second day, because he keeps asking everybody for advice. I saw him ask him for advice. I saw him ask Cassandra, our editor-in-chief, Cassandra McDonald. Like, so I was prepared for him to ask me advice. Like, it might happen. I mean, who knows? And he did. And I'm like, you should have, because I keep telling him, like, one of your greatest gifts is the ability to collaborate, which is almost like poison in politics these days. So you can collaborate, like, you get stronger, like you, Kanye West, get stronger through collaboration. Like, I'm telling him, like, you had Rick Ross and Justin Vernon in a room together to make a song like Monster. So the Twitter files just came out the night before, the first one. And I was like, you know, you should have someone from the other side. And I was saying, like, Ro Khanna, who was mentioned on Matt Taibbi's thing of like the only Democrat to reach out to be like, what's up with this free speech stuff? This is ridiculous. I'm like, I'm like, that's someone you might want to reach out to, because they might not agree with everything you're doing politically, but I think, give you a rounder view of the socio-political spectrum. You don't have to agree, but that's like what this is all about. I don't agree with everything you're saying either, but like, we're both going to hopefully walk away, hopefully stronger from it. So I thought the same exact thing, man. I think that's totally true.
I think he'll do it. I think it's all about vibes. You know, you got to find, and you know, for some reason, he and Fuentes and Milo have kind of found that resonance. You know, because specifically with artists, like, you know, I'm an artist. I have a lot of artist friends, and it's like, you know, the people you surround yourself with, it's like, you know, you don't want to just have like cookie cutters that like, so that you're checking boxes. Like they have to resonate. Otherwise, you know, the whole kind of the whole flow state and artistic process gets kind of disrupted. But yeah, that's awesome that you planted that seed, and hopefully he'll take you up on that. Cool. All right. Well, let's just like talk about some of the stuff that came out last night, because it's just insane. And I love the coping of the legacy media still trying to act like, oh my God, this was obvious. We knew this. But wait a second. I'm pretty sure that in front of Congress, Dorsey denied all of this. He denied it in a reply to Dave Rubin. He just point blank said no when Rubin asked him. He like on Twitter did a whole blog post about it. And so, you know, now we know that we've got multiple layers of sort of secret committees that are like the Ministry of Truth. And this is what was happening. And it was, what was your guys' biggest takeaway?
I thought it was funny because like in part one, I'm starting to feel better for Dorsey, because he was like kept in the shadows, you know, like they're working around him. But then on this one, I'm like, oh, he was a part of it. I think it's like, it's insane, but it's like we all knew this. If those of us paying attention, this is just like confirmation bias. We knew it. It's just, I mean, still seeing it it's alarming and it's so disgusting. And I just keep telling people like this kind of stuff. Whenever I say a lot of the time, like we live in a simulation, but I don't mean it in like the Elon Musk way. I mean like these organizations, like the bigger social media platforms and then corporate media, and then like the CIA and the FBI, they create like a reality on top of our reality, and like they manipulate it, just like doing stuff like this. And we are left, if you're not paying attention, you're left to believe in the false reality, which is like it's accelerated our division, right? No one gets along now because we're buying into the caricatures of the false reality. Where if we strip it away like this, like when I was watching Taibbi drop it, I was just like, oh man, the simulation is really burning now, and it feels good. So I think it's good. I hope this leads to better things. And I think it's super exciting, and it's great for Musk. I mean, I'm not the biggest Musk fan yet. I think there's a lot of things with him I don't agree with, like his subjectivity on how to do free speech on his platform. Not the biggest fan of Neuralink, but I'm a big fan of what he's trying to do. And this is like, for me, it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's shades of gray, and no one's perfect, but it's Twitter. It's certainly a better situation that we were in than we were in before he owned it, and all of this subjectivity, like with Ye and Alex Jones or whoever it is. I have optimism that over time, that's going to get ironed out. With my like. What I would love to see is interoperability and collaboration between Twitter and Minds and other alternative social networks, and we can actually build technology to get these decisions out of all of our hands. And so we're all sort of interfaces to like an open source decentralized protocol underneath. And but I mean, the Dorsey, I think that the thing is that Elon and Taibbi, even, I think that they're friends with him. And, Elon even made a statement like, I think Jack has a good heart. This is what everyone says. And I think it's probably true. Like, that's why you see Jack involved in Bitcoin and like, talking about these issues. You saw his private text with Elon where he said like, no, we need an open source like protocol. This is where things need to move. But at the end of the day, he was CEO, and even if it was willful ignorance, and he was like intentionally kind of siloing himself off from a lot of these decisions, it appears he was not. It appears that he was involved in many of them, which makes sense. But like, and we posted this the other day or yesterday. Like, Jack deserves a path to redemption, just like all the banned people. Like, he made mistakes clearly. And to what you're saying about the simulation, like, maybe not in terms of like a universal cosmic simulation, like the jury's out on that, but in terms of like a earth-based synthetic reality manufactured by multinational corporations and governments. I mean, what else can we make of this? This is literally public consciousness being engineered by a corporate oligopoly. So
if they monopolize the public square, which is now mostly digital, and then they're also manipulating that public square because it's supposed to be like a reflection of reality, then they've tampered with all of our consciousness. Like, people hate each other because of what they're seeing on here, and they're also not hearing other alternative forms of thought because they're literally being suppressed. So I'm happy to see it ending. I don't know if the damage is too far gone though. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think it was very vindicating for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that know the shadow banning has been taking place. And, like we put up the clip when Zuckerberg was talking to Rogan and, admitted that the FBI was telling them to cover up, or to downplay shadow ban, essentially the Hunter Biden laptop story. And it's like vindication for everyone. But because you did sound kind of crazy. Like, if you're talking to people like, hey, Twitter's targeting us, you sound like a crazy person. You're like, what? you know, why would Twitter target you? And that's what a lot of people thought. So I mean,
Yep.
you know, having the proof come out, I think it's just like powerful. And
Totally.
you know, those that already knew, it's like, of course we knew. But I think for those that were like calling those people crazy, it's like, well, explain this. You know,
It was
I
just
haven't-
very. Go ahead.
I was just saying I haven't like tuned into the corporate media at all. Like, is this news to them now? Like, is it on the normal big corporate TV stations?
I mean, check it. Just search. Let's look right now. Just Google Twitter files. Let's see if they, because it took them like many days to just enough. Yeah, here we go. All right. Yeah, so I think they're starting to pick up on it more. After the first wave, it was very much like New York Times didn't even cover it for a couple days.
Right.
They cannot avoid this. So,
No.
you know, they, even if they want to cope and say, oh, you know, this was obvious, it wasn't. They, you know, they literally before Congress said, we're not shadow banning. Twitter published a blog post called like setting the record straight on shadow banning. And they just flat out denied it. So, you know, from Jack, I would love to, you know, he needs to come out with some sort of a sincere apology and then, you know, help rebuild, you know, get on board with the new system.
I agree. I also think he comes from a good place. You know, I don't know him, but I've watched a lot of interviews with him. And I think, you know, there's definitely some ignorance there. And like, I think back to when Rogan had Tim and Vijaya and Dorsey on, Jack appeared like a good person. He just was in a silo. You know, he was experiencing like cognitive dissonance when Tim's pushing back on certain ideas that to them, they didn't even encounter it. It's like in the robots in Westworld, like they don't know what a door is when they walk by it. So it's like, I think he means well. So I have hope for him.
He means well, but it's the type of person, which is not a good personality trait, is to enable yourself to get steamrolled by, you know, ideologues. And that's what happened. He got steamrolled because he's being too nice. And that's kind of what's happening to society at large.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true.
And but he also didn't want to do the work. And you know, the thing is, it's like watching that interview with Vijaya and what she's saying, and thank you for your feedback to Tim, and we'll look into that and all that stuff. She knew all this stuff. I mean, she knew about the Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, that's the other thing too. It's like having these come out, it's really good to know who knew what. I still don't think, you know, I don't give Jack a full pass. I think he definitely put people in places. Like he wasn't a hands-on CEO. He wanted to rely on people, which is great. But when you have one of the most important tools in politics at that time, like you and you know, society and the communication, like you got to make sure, like, you know.
No, it is full on malicious. The fact that he came out and objectively denied it, like that is lying, and that's deliberate lying. It's so it is a little bit darker in that sense. Again, still path to redemption. It's okay. People can do this and still redeem themselves. So
he was like the congressional hearings, right, where he was by video with the like Osama bin Laden beard and stuff. And we knew then he must have been lying. And yeah, you're right. It is dark and malicious. And Barry's stuff proves that. And it's a bummer. It is a bummer. But yeah, we should offer him a path to redemption like anybody else now. And hopefully he does that. Hopefully he comes out and says it. I'm not gonna hold my breath, but I feel like he might. A
lot of what the kind of critics of the Twitter files in the legacy media are going to say is that in like Yoel, you know, the former head of trust and safety, who is like right at the center of all this, they're going to say that the Twitter files are putting these people at risk. That's what the narrative is going to be, that, you know, this is putting their lives at risk. And, you know, they are certainly getting backlash on social media right now, but I think that it's a very similar argument to when the mainstream media says like misinformation, you know, causes real world harm. You know, it's like, look, every like account, you can't say that there can't be accountability just because there's going to be public backlash. So
Right.
But I've already
Yeah.
seen them going with that, and they're saying, oh, these people are gonna, get, all kinds of death threats, which honestly probably is happening because there's probably crazy people who are doing that, which is really unfortunate. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't.
So
Yeah.
they
But I
take those little examples.
And then like I hear that stuff, like not the death threat stuff, but like the media trying to spin it like that, and I'm just like, I don't trust anybody who doesn't want transparency. Like that is disturbing.
And let's pretend like and let's also not pretend like they weren't getting them before just for other reasons. I mean, like, and once you're in the public space, you're in the public space. So I don't like that argument. I also hate the argument where it's like public figures are responsible for what their fans do. It's like,
oh yeah,
people have to take responsibility.
I'm so over that. I've been hearing that conversation since I was, 8 years old, listening to NWA and West Side Connection and Marilyn Manson, like all these things. Like I'm so over that conversation, but they use that to try to suppress the person speaking all the time. And I'm over it.
Well, there was in the funniest move was 2 days ago, Dorsey posting, oh well, why don't you just publish all the files now?
Yeah.
Did you see that tweet, Shane?
No.
Oh, bring it up. So Dorsey posted, let's see if it's embedded. Read this. Dorsey says, if the goal is transparency to build trust, why not just release everything without filter and let people judge for themselves, including all discussions around current and future actions? Make everything public now. And this was like a day ago, which is crazy because, what he's trying to say is basically, well, Elon, you're posting all of this past stuff, but what about what you're doing? Like, why not publish that? So he's trying to like turn it on Elon. And it's like, he probably feels buried in all the records. Like it would redeem him more probably because because what it would probably show, and this is what Taibbi's thread said, was that Dorsey would actually speak up to overturn to fix bans a lot. So like when he saw one that was really bad, he would come and say, hey, wait a second, this, you probably went too far. I have no doubt that there's evidence of that. But it's just funny that he kind of tried to turn it around like this. I don't think he can get away with
it's the big ask. I think I like, man, if Musk releases it all, I'll personally be like, sweet, go for it. But
well, that's what Tim was saying last night. Tim doesn't really like the slow drip.
Right.
It's so slow.
Oh yeah, it is. It's brutal. It's brutal. But if I were Taibbi or Barry, I'd be like, yeah. No, if I were one of them, I'd be excited to be able to release it, in that way. But my goodness, imagine if it was just all like an atom bomb, just released. Yeah. It'd be exciting, and then we could all, sift through it. But Musk is also he's a showman. He can't help it. He knows what he's doing.
He does know what he's doing. And I think that, it's because what he wants to do is turn this into a profitable thing for Twitter, and it's working. So, people are making memes about it. And, Posobiec, Sean, made a funny comment. He was like, that you can create a thread at once and then just clicks. Like, you don't need to do it like one after another. You can just do the whole thread now and then post it. Like, you don't like, but it almost
makes me wonder, on it.
Is Elon doing this because he wants people refreshing the feed? Like I think that's it. I think that he wants the metrics on Twitter. He wants to reach all-time highs of metrics. And he knows that millions of people are doing that refresh, and those are API requests. That's getting their numbers up. So
I agree.
I think it's very
he loves showing charts, right? He loves showing charts and how things are going. So he's going to show the spike in this for each Twitter file, and it's going to look great, and he'll be very pleased with himself, I'm sure.
Yeah, you can't deny that. Yeah,
I would pay a lot of money to see the Ye Elon discussion, though. Just FYI, if you do make that happen, Shane, that would.
I am literally trying to make that happen.
That's awesome.
I don't know Musk at all, but it is. He keeps saying, like, Kanye keeps saying unification, and I'm like, well, you got to then unify with the guy you don't like right now. You got to set the example, you know, that's how we do it. I don't know if you saw that Instagram post he put out that was about Elon. You know, it was like he was calling him like a half Chinese, like mutation supermodel. But at the very end, you know, he kind of flipped Elon's, you know, FAFO. Remember, he posted that after banning Kanye, and then Ye said, "Unify and find out." So I'm like, well, that's
what it said at the end of that message.
Yeah, unify and find out.
Interesting.
That's, I think that would be the evolution. Him and, you know, Musk talking. I think that'd be amazing.
Maybe Ye will pull a Laura Loomer.
Cuff herself to the headquarters.
That would be insane. That would be so funny.
Yeah, that'd be
anyway,
awesome.
dude, this has been great. This is a great conversation. Shane, any so you got your next book coming out. You got all kinds of crazy stuff going on, man. So everybody make sure to get the book. Keep an eye on Shane. Where can people find you, Shane?
Yeah, I'm Shane Cashman on every platform there is. And you can find the Inverted World stuff at timcast.com. That's where the Ye article is. And yeah, the new book should be out, I'd say, in like a few months probably. So, but in the meantime, you can watch every episode and get a feel for it.
Awesome.
Good stuff, man. Thanks so much for coming. We'll do it again.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much.
Thanks, Shane.
Cheers.